Mike is passionate about technology and its application personally and for business. He is dedicated to helping organizations accelerate their productivity and profitability through the implementation of technology solutions. So we are super excited to have Mike. Go ahead and take it away.
All right, thank you, Annie. Let's share my screen and get on task here. So I'm going to try to make this presentation as relevant as possible and to fit it into 30 to 35 minutes. It's got to be about a 45-minute to an hour presentation. I'm going to try and plow through it. Hopefully you gain some value from it. We are business people at the Hudsonville Chamber, my local community, and want to talk about technology marches on in the context of business results. And so I'm going to blow right through the agenda here and say that I always say, and I'm a technology guy, I love technology personally and in business, but I say, what are we trying to do at work in business? And that is, we want to improve productivity. Can I be more efficient, do more with less? Profitability or sustainability. We need to make sure that we're making money or running a sustainable organization so that we can hire more families and support more families, jobs, and people. Innovation and differentiation. How am I different than the other guys? Just talking to Chris there about what he's doing as a realtor. Fascinating every month what he's doing to be different than all the other realtors in the world. And then risk mitigation. I just personally believe that risk is almost a singular defining part of our lives. The amount of risk we take and manage impacts so much of what we do. And then lastly, our organization, our business, the culture. Do people want to come and be a part of this and work here? So that's what we do. I love the technology, and anytime we talk about technology, I say, who really cares? We're looking for some sort of results, either personally or in business. So I'm going to talk in a context of personal, business, and from a customer or a client standpoint. Try and merge that. And the theme is technology marches on. And one of the points I make over and over again around here is systems and platforms. I implore you in your personal life, in your business life, to embrace technology marching on, but to embrace the system, the platform. Google has a great system or platform. I'm an Android guy. I'm sure there's a lot of Apple people out there. And so Google has a great system and platform. I use the Maps, I use the Gmail, I use the Android phone, which integrates to the calendar. All my kids and family have a Gmail calendar. We use Drive for Christmas gifts and so on. So a great platform, as is Apple, right? The Apple Watch, the iPod, all of the things Apple that come together create a great system or platform and the most valuable company in the world. Facebook is trying to get into all that, and they're pushing into business. And it's a great way to organize and pull people together personally, but also in business. And we see what they're doing. Microsoft 365, for any of you that use it, is a great system or platform. Great for business. And we've got Slack showing up saying, look, we can help people run projects, communicate, work together. Snapchat was in there from a communication standpoint, but SAP and Oracle are the big boys for systems and platforms. I say use systems and platforms because we're talking about information systems. We're talking about information technology. We're talking about information integration. Anytime we can integrate, that is good. I rail against islands of information. What does an island of information look like? Well, I'm using Dropbox for all my file sharing. I use some sort of email system like Gmail or a business email system. I use Zoom for my conference calls, and I use Slack for my collaboration and project management to move stuff forward. Oh, and I have QuickBooks accounting, and then I've got some sort of a software that runs my business or organization. I've got 610 logins and everything. Did I put it there or there? If we can pull this together, it is a good thing. Systems and platforms. What are trends we see in technology? Certainly the cloud. It's all about the cloud. Everything's going to the cloud. And Internet of Things. Shepherd's right in Grand Rapids put my lawn sprinkling in, and I called them up and said, I can't do this manual analog controller. I need a computer controller because I need to be able to talk to this thing from my cell phone. And they put it in, which meant I need a wireless access point in my garage. Internet of Things. Everything is becoming connected, which means that in your business, in your organization, and at your home, the edge network is so important. Although everything's moving to the cloud, oh yeah, it's all about the cloud. No, a lot of computing happens in the edge right inside your house, right inside your business. And the edge network, the last mile, the connectivity from the cloud to your home or to your business, so important. And then lastly, security. I mean, we are moving big into security at i3 Business Solutions because, well, you know why. Because of Colonial Pipeline, because of all the breaches that are happening. A number of years ago, I heard the first CIO of the United States of America, designated by Barack Obama, speak at a conference. And he said what the bureaucracy, the federal government's trying to move toward is fast, flexible, and fungible. I love anything that comes in threes, i3 Business Solutions. Adam, not so much a sermon, but that works also. Fast, flexible, and fungible is could the federal government, which has been modernizing the IRS system, which runs on a mainframe that goes back somewhere around a half a century, they've been modernizing the tax software for over a quarter century. And it was Vivek that said, we need fungible, we need disposable. And so that's part of the challenge of technology. As technology marches on, when do we go from the bleeding edge to the leading edge and say, we're going to implement this and use it? And Vivek's saying the federal government has to do more of that, which means we're going to embrace technology. It might be obsolete in 3 to 5 years. That's okay. We have to use technology. But that goes straight to the challenge of our business. The challenge of running a business is, I always say, it's easy. You do the same thing over and over again, every day, consistently, and you have great results. Because for somebody like me, I can get a little distracted. Hey, here's a good idea. No, let's do the same thing every day. And we need to change. At what point do we say continuous improvement? We're going to implement this new technology, this new idea, which leads me to my first book recommendation, which is a thick tome written by Ray Kurzweil, essentially the inventor of Lotus 1, 2, 3, and the syncing engine that went with it. And Ray Kurzweil wrote this book over 15 years ago. The singularity is near. That our bodies, the human person is actually integrating with technology. Think about that. Written 15 years ago, before the iPhone, the iPad, or the Google, the Android watch, or the Apple Watch, that in fact it's coming together. And that's what that book is about. That the singularity of technology and mankind is coming together. And we're going to talk about that. But certainly, I don't know about you, but I'm down to, I think, about 3 or 4 phone numbers that I actually have memorized in my head. One of them, my dad's number that goes back, I think, about 50, 60 years. I know that number. But beyond that, this is the answer to phone numbers for me. I have no idea. Without this, I can't get a hold of anybody, I don't think. So the singularity is near, and we're going to talk about that. The second book that I do recommend is a book called Abundance, and I really highly recommend you consider this book by Peter Diamandis. Peter Diamandis is created the X Prize, and the X Prize, if you remember, was $10 million awarded to the first person or private company that could put a spaceship in orbit around the Earth. and that was awarded. And today it's common stuff for SpaceX to launch a rocket. So Abundance by Peter Diamandis is a fascinating read, and I'm going to essentially go through some of those concepts right now. And I'm watching the clock and shooting at about 15 to 10 minutes of the hour to complete the presentation. So when we talk about technology marching on, what is the impact of technology on our society? And Peter submits that human development over 150,000 years or 6,000 years or millions of years, whatever you choose, is local and linear. Until about 150 years ago, human development has moved to exponential and global. And we know what a linear trend is very predictable and steady, and an exponential trend just explodes. And that's essentially what technology has brought to us. Two things, technology and energy. I'll talk about it over and over again. We move from linear, Kodak. Some of us remember using an analog camera, and that Kodak, $28 billion in value, 140,000 employees, went bankrupt in 2012. I lived through the era when people said, oh no, digital pictures aren't as good. You want to use an analog camera. I actually did some of that. Like, oh, you tech people, I'll show you a quality photo. Things have changed substantially. And Instagram started right around April of 2012, reached $1 billion market cap with 13 employees. We know what happened. And Zuckerberg handed them $20 billion and merged them in. I think it was a good idea because analog photos just dropped off the table. And today we're over 2 trillion photos a day being uploaded to everything from Google to Apple. Linear versus exponential. That Blockbuster is out of business. I can remember, maybe some of you too, on Craigslist and so on. I can remember, and I had friends that had bookshelves of VHS and DVD tapes, and then people would put them up on Craigslist for, give me a couple $100 for all these DVDs. I actually considered it because once you own the DVD, you own the license. And but beyond that, the value of Netflix today for the $11.99 a month they get from me every month was a good idea and is an example of exponentially changing the world. So we go back 100 years and the value, the average company lasted 67 years on the S&P 500. Today it's down to 15 years. Disruptive innovation is the driver of our worldwide economy. We know that Rivertown Mall is leaking tenants, Sears, JCPenney, and we know that the value of these organizations has plummeted and many of them going bankrupt, especially during a pandemic. But Amazon today worth over, I think about $1.5 trillion, and Walmart doing well because they figured out how to turn their store inventory into online inventory, and they're racing to keep up with Amazon. So if we take 30 steps, we go about 30 meters. That's a linear progression. If we take 30 steps, exponentially double them every time we go around the world in 26 years. And that's exactly what's happening with technology. Moore's law said, he only predicted a decade that compute capacity would double every year for a decade. He was wrong. It doubled every year for 50 years. And so when we go back to the year that I was born, a transistor soldered together, the move from the cathode tube, which, well, we won't go into that right now. But in 1971, Intel came out with their 4004 processor that had 2,300 transistors, 10,000 nanometers between connections and was 0.00074 gigahertz, slow as molasses, and cost about $1. And as of 5 years ago, we went from 2,300 to 14.4 billion and 14 nanometers. Now, today we're at 5 nanometers. We've gone from 10,000 to 5. We're going to 3 next. And the cost has plummeted to well below pennies. We're putting computer chips in so many things that we can't get enough of them in a pandemic. We don't have enough for cars. We've got them in every TV, every computer, and we're 80,000 times faster, $4.2 million cheaper, and which is over a 300 billion fold improvement in 45 years. I mean, used to have to ship. When I came into technology in 1990, I bought a station wagon because I said, I'm going to need this thing to deliver the mainframes. And actually, I thought I missed technology in 1990 because IBM came out with the PC Junior, and I bought one for my family, and that thing had some graphical interfaces to it. I thought I missed the whole boat. But things have happened in the last 30 years. And part of it is that memory itself has gone from 5 megabytes to 128 for $99 to 128 gigabytes for $99. I have an unhealthy habit of shopping on Black Friday. I like to go to Staples. They usually have a sale on USB ports, and I spend a whopping $9.99. You can get a 128 gig USB port for $9.99 right now. That's what's happening with technology. It is exponentially growing. So when we consider the ramifications of that on the world, on people around the world, it's one thing to have a cell phone with all this information. It's another thing to move to artificial intelligence. We'll get into today, 4.5 billion people around the world have cell phones. That's one thing. I mean, Einstein was a bright guy, but where is the next Einstein in the world? Could that person be somewhere where they don't have access to technology, and they will have access in the next year or two? But beyond that, as we pull together all this information, not in the form of Google, because it's one thing to do a search and find the answer instantly. It's another thing to have enough compute power to pull all that together, kind of like winning the Jeopardy game or winning the chess match against the best chess player in the world. That's one thing. But we can organize information in an intelligent way from around the world. Now we're really making some impact. We'll talk about how that happens. A blockchain is the foundation of cryptocurrency. We're not going to spend another hour like my kids do talking about cryptocurrency today, but it is certainly a big part of how we can secure and change the way that compute is done around the world, and it is being implemented in very serious ways. But what happens as we implement energy and technology, we move from scarcity to abundance. And this looks like what's called the 6D framework, which you and I are living every day. Scarcity is contextual. We cannot eat the oranges off that tree because we can't reach them. If we can figure out how to get the oranges off the tree, we can move to a point of abundance. And how do we look at scarcity? Is energy scarce? Is water scarce? Is health scarce? Is learning, time, money, expertise, resources, are they scarce? 6D framework says that. And this, try and ponder this in context of your business or your organization. And I think a lot of us have lived it in the last year. And our professional Zoom specialist here, Adam, is a specialist in Zoom, maybe because of the pandemic. a lot of us have implemented this technology. Restaurants have been thrown into app orders for their technology. What happens with technology is, first, it's digitized. So the disruptive innovation shows up in some sort of app, some sort of cloud-based technology, and then we're kind of deceptive about it. Oh my goodness, I've got this good thing. I don't want to tell anybody about it. I'm going to build this business. But then what it does is it disrupts business or the economy or the world, and then it's dematerialized. That means it gets smaller. We'll talk about that. Then it's demonetized, it gets cheaper, and then it's democratized. It benefits the entire world. So let's talk about dematerialization. It was somewhere around 35, maybe 40 years ago that I couldn't afford a VHS camera. So what I did, I realized one day that I could afford a VHS tape. So I bought a VHS tape. And then I only knew 2 people in the whole world that had a VHS camera back then. I think they cost $3,000 to $5,000. One of them was a customer who I barely knew, and he said he's got one. I took the whole family over to his apartment. We sat on the couch and recorded ourselves. And then for the next couple of years, I carried an 8mm and a VHS tape around everywhere I went. And if somebody had a camera, I said, can I borrow it? Put the thing in. That's how I got to technology back then. But all this has collapsed. The boombox, the Walkman, the VHS player, the typewriter have collapsed. The big Bell phone has collapsed into our iPhone. And that's what we call dematerialization. Think about the ramifications for the environment, for climate change, on all that stuff that's not being manufactured. And then it's demonetized. I submit that Uber and Airbnb have done more for climate change and for the environment than almost anything else to date. And that is that, think about the number of cars that have not been manufactured because of Uber. Governments have risen up against it and said, no, we need more taxis in the city. People are turning assets into productive parts of society due to technology, due to an app. Incomprehensible. Same with Airbnb. How many hotels have not been built worldwide because people said, hey, you can sleep in my house? But democratization, what has it done for the ability for people to make money, that they can actually make money delivering food or delivering groceries from Meijer? It democratizes technology. And that's what's happening in the world. I mean, think about the continent of Africa, that the US is draped in copper. We've spent the last 100 years draping this country in copper, cable from Spectrum and Charter, and copper going to our house for our phone calls. They don't have to do any of that in the continent of Africa. 4.5 billion people have access to communication. And I submit they may not even need highways in Africa. That's what we call democratization. So we have arguments over here at i3 over the years about internet monopoly. And a number of years ago, there was a law passed that wanted to demonopolize and control the cable companies and the internet. And controversial subject, but disruptive innovation in a 5G world that is coming to West Michigan. It doesn't fully drape West Michigan or America yet, but 5G from cellular towers gives you a good option to Comcast and to Spectrum. We know that Elon Musk, SpaceX, is putting tens of thousands of satellites into space. And Zuckerberg wants to drape the world in internet also. Boeing is putting up satellites to drape the world in internet. Disruptive innovation from technology, and Elon Musk is racing to it every month or so right now. So we're heading toward global ubiquitous connectivity where everybody, 4.5 billion people, can be connected on the web. And then as we pull that information together with artificial intelligence, I mean, we can know anything, anytime, anywhere by doing the Google search today. That's fine. But as it comes together, we've got robots that can lay 1,000 bricks per hour. And robotics has been a little bit in the background lately beyond the vacuum in some of our homes. And certainly the automated car is here already, but it'll be a decade or three before we can let go of our cars, because that 1957 Chevy that you have has to be retrofitted to be on the road. Disruptive innovation took only 12 years for the city of New York to move from horse and buggy to automobiles. And it's happening today again. That's exponential disruptive innovation due to energy and technology. So this is in the future. Now we say, how soon in the future? And I say, okay, 25 to 50 years. But think about the ramifications of that. Airbus is working on it. Boeing's working on it. Uber's working on it. I mean, how hard is it to create a drone that we can put a human or two in and fly over? Amazon's delivering packages today. Commercial construction, not helicopters, but drones that can carry 500 pounds, that can do remote pipe inspection, is dramatically affecting the world. What happens when company decides to build a square mile building, and given the cost of construction today, the investment dollars come in and we 3D print homes? I mean, imagine going online and not just ordering a car configured the way you want, but going online and designing a house the way you want. And this house would be less expensive and more efficient and better built than custom built homes today. Hard to imagine. I believe it is coming. That's technology and energy and disruptive innovation coming together. But it all comes together in artificial intelligence. And it is controversial today. And it was started by Obama, and Hillary, in saying we want electronic health records to come together. We're in that business. We have healthcare customers. Very difficult to get Spectrum and Metro and every physician's office and every insurance company to work together. But as this happens, what happens is as the health information merges with the social information, think Facebook and Google, as that information comes together along with the compute power, dramatic things happen. And so we know today that people are saved by their Apple Watch, because at 3 o'clock in the morning, it wakes them up and says, your heart's going at 140 beats a minute. That's very unusual. And they wake up, they're having a heart attack. That is technology serving us. Certainly the pacemaker right inside our chest has served us for a long time. But could we pull together the analysis of the human genome? Could we pull together, the ability to change nucleotide? That's a controversial subject today, especially, maybe. But this is real T-cell therapy, and this hits close to home when we talk about lymphoma patients being impacted. So as we pull together all this information, health records, social information, information from our Apple or Android watch, which looks like a half a terabyte of information, the amount of compute power needed to analyze that and come out with answers that'll extend human life is staggering. But that's where we're going, and the impacts on society will be dramatic. So let's talk about evidence for what technology is doing today, and then I'll get into how you can use it for your business. And I'm going to shoot for 9 to 7 minutes to wrap this up. What's happening to global income, lifespan, food, energy, transportation, and communication? We do tend to romanticize the past, that today, with all the problems we read about every day, it looks better in the past. But what is the data? What is the reality of what's happening in the world? And so famine in the past killed 2.8 million people only 300 years ago. And today you don't read about that. Millions of people dying from famine. We do not have a food scarcity problem. We do have a food distribution problem. Plagues in the past. I actually looked this up, that the population of the earth back then was about 400 million people. 200 million people died from the Black Plague. That's 50%, 40 to 50% of the world population was wiped out. Today, we've got 7.8 billion people, and 4.5 million people worldwide have died from this current pandemic. That's 0.06% of the world population, a dramatic improvement. And that's due to technology and energy. War used to kill people all over the world. How many people are living in extreme poverty today? The answer is less people than in the history of the world. And that's less than 10% of the world are living in poverty today. And so literacy around the world is going up, I submit, due to energy and due to technology. The global vaccination percentage is going up. That's extending lives around the world. Smallpox, polio, measles, tetanus, wiped out. Child mortality rate is going down, which has implications for the population. And so why did people have 7 to 10 kids around the world and still today in impoverished areas? Think about that. Why have 10? And the answer is because you would lose 3 to 5 kids before the age of 5. I'm going to have 10 kids because a bunch of them are going to die. Less and less of that happening today. And so same with maternal mortality rates. Less mothers are dying today. So the average life expectancy is going up, which has ramifications for China and Japan especially. Their population is aging. China limited the number of kids, and Japan is a very closed society. Immigration in America, people want to come here, bodes us well. So the global reduction in children per family, the projections say that no, we're not going to be run over by 15, 20 billion people in the world. We do not have a scarcity problem. In fact, we're going to peak out at between 9 and 9.5 billion people in the world, I submit, because of energy and technology. As I'm not living in a house drinking dirty water from a sewer that's essentially killing my children. I'm not heating my home with wood and breathing that and cooking with that. My life expectancy goes up. And that's what's happening. That is the reason that the world population will peak around 9.5 billion people. Very interesting, there hasn't been an airline death in America in the last 12 years. Well, that's just amazing. Over somewhere between 8 and 10 billion people have flown in America without a crash. Fascinating to read about that, and I recommend that. Another good book for your organization, Checklist Manifesto, about airline and healthcare checklists. So the global death rate from natural catastrophes going down, wars are going down, and why is it? And I'm submitting disruptive innovation, energy, and technology are changing the world dramatically. I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to switch over here and say, what are the ramifications, or what can we do in our business? And I'm down to, I'm going to try and do this in 3 minutes. So in a business, we talked about the framework, technology marches on, and so the challenge is to to look inside our business and say, how can technology serve me? And so there's lots of ways to do that. Facebook is definitely building a business platform, and it becomes an option. Apple definitely has a platform that a lot of organizations use for productivity. Slack is used more and more. They're building a platform for collaboration and improving our business. Google G Suite, I told you I use it personally. I love it. They have a great business organization. And when I talk about Google and I talk about Office 365, Microsoft 365, we're back to using systems and platforms as opposed to islands. I think that can have a dramatic impact on your business. When you get into systems and platforms, and if you're using something like Microsoft 365, then there are things like Planner, which is essentially a project management system, very powerful and secure and integrated. And there's Microsoft Teams that some of you may be using today. Microsoft Teams, a powerful collaboration engine that's integrated and secure. And then you get document, file folders and management. OneNote, if any of you use Evernote, OneNote, another powerful piece of Microsoft 365 that allows us to collaborate and maintain secure information in a single platform. I give you this list here to say, as you're moving your organization forward and you're looking at cloud applications or applications to run your business, what are some of the criteria? I say number one is the system or the platform, not the island, which means if you're using a piece of software to run your business, and you can find a module that integrates to it, first place to start is, wow, here's a module I can buy. It's fully integrated to my software. Good decision, usually. Look at the efficacy and the roadmap. Boy, is this company financially sound, and they're going to be around 5 to 10 years from now, and they're keeping up with the industry and what I'm trying to do. Ability to implement. We have small businesses that look at SAP. I say, no, don't look at SAP. SAP is fine for a company with 1,000 to 10,000 employees, but you've got 85. I don't think you'll ever get SAP implemented. You know, what are your requirements? What kind of alignment? Again, is that thing built for a 100 employee company or for a 1,000 employee company? Security has to be primary today. And again, when you're working in a system or a platform, you can better manage the security. When you start getting into 5, 10 different logins, we can lose control of our business. And lastly, price. So that's it. Technology marches on. Look at how you can embrace it and impact your organization. I say embrace it in your life. I think good things are happening due to disruptive innovation, energy, and technology. And I'll leave you with, use a platform, use a system, move toward that. Centralize your information and use mobile effectively, and then keep an eye on the risk, keep an eye on the security. I'll turn it back over to Amy.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Any questions for Mike? You can either unmute yourself and let us know or put it in the chat, whatever you feel comfortable with.
Hey, Mike, real quick, do you find that Office 365 is more secure than Google platform?
I'm going to give that one a no. I'll say it this way, that Office 365 is built for business, and therefore they're very focused around business security. And so and the federal government uses Office 365 in multiple departments. Healthcare organizations, financial organizations use it. So Microsoft is focused on business and security. Google is a good suite. I will tell everybody here, for your personal systems and for your email systems, two-factor authentication is the key. Write it down. Two-factor authentication is a huge way to protect either Google or Office 365. From my perspective, Google was built for the consumer, and then they said, hey, let's get into business. So in that respect, would be less secure. But I do believe that big organizations like Microsoft and Google are working very hard to keep it secure. Lastly, Doug, I'll say that they've got a big target on them. Both Microsoft and Google have a huge target on them. So they're both working hard to protect their entire environment.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Mike, I got a quick question for you. In your action items, like effectively using mobile, how do you, what do you suggest to balance maximizing abilities of devices like mobile phones while also creating a healthy, engagement with that in effectively disconnecting and addiction to device? How do you balance those two things?
Yeah, I think we're all on that journey, and I don't have any magic answers. And frankly, I'm not aware that in Microsoft 365 you can turn off mobile. I'm just not aware of that. It would be a neat trick to say, hey, we're gonna shut this thing off from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. But I think that's part of culture. It's part of every business, every organization's journey is how we balance that. Certainly, the big gain is that we can access people. People can work with it when they want. That balance is the challenge.
Thanks.